Hello, welcome. This is Business Week coming to you from our studios here in Lagos. I am Frank Omalape. Here's what coming up in the moment. Federal government suspends shipment of liquefied petroleum gas, also known as cooking gas, to alleviate scarcity. Plus, Nigeria's gross domestic product rises to 3.46% in the fourth quarter of 2023 as annual GDP grew by 2.74% against 3.1% in 2022. This is according to Nigeria Bureau of Statistics. And finally, outside Nigeria, the world's most popular cryptocurrency, Bitcoin's market capitalization rises above $1 trillion for the first time since 2021. For this and many more are what to expect on the show today. I am Frank Omalape, and this is Business Week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let's begin with the major stories that made headlines in the week. The federal government has suspended the shipment of liquefied petroleum gas, also known as cooking gas, to alleviate scarcity and to increase its volume domestically. Minister of State Petroleum Resources, Ekperikpe Ekpo, revealed this during the internal stakeholders workshop in Abuja. The minister also stated that LPG producers in Nigeria and key stakeholders in the industry have stopped exporting the commodity out of Nigeria following the recent jump in the cost of cooking gas. He added that all LPG produced within the country will have to be domesticated to increase the volume, which is automatically crashing the price. And now the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, is calling for the adoption of technology and stronger synergy among stakeholders to enhance business environment in Nigeria. The VP made the call at the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council PEBEC meeting at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. He said the robust engagement among stakeholders and adopting relevant technology would help in addressing bottlenecks experienced by operators in the nation's entry points and in the area of business regulations. Earlier, Special Advisor to the President on PEBEC and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Odwole, said the Council had launched a 90-day regulatory reform accelerator action plan. The Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council Action Plan underscores the commitment of President Bola Tinubu's administration to delivering impactful reforms, working with ministry, department, and agencies to foster a conducive business environment and improve the perception about the ease of doing business in Nigeria.
The PEBEC Secretariat has come together with a scope of a 90-day accelerator, and the ministries, departments, and agencies across all the business-related, all the business-facing sectors. And you know us for tracking, you know us for transparency. We'll be releasing an interim report at the 45-day mark, and we'll continue to carry Nigerians along. It's not an easy time. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of headwinds. We have representation on this council from the central bank. We have representation from the state government. Everybody, all hands on deck, because productivity and competitiveness for export, which is the two things that we're focusing on, agriculture for export and manufacturing for export, and all that we can use to make sure that there's productivity and competitiveness in this economy.
We are very concerned about the multiplicity of agencies at the airports, government agencies, and the attitude of these officers of these agencies. So it's not just about the multiplicity, but what they do at the airports too, in terms of harassing Nigerians or visitors coming into Nigeria or going out of Nigeria, searching their bags, asking for gratification and here and there. The president, this government is very concerned about it. The vice president is on top of the issue. We looked at various ways to address that issue.
All arms of government, we need to do what is required for this to be successful. So that when it comes to lawmaking, we are thinking of an omnibus bill so that all the bottlenecks can be removed via a bill. National Assembly will be part of these processes so that it is not going to be any surprise when it comes to us. We are ready to be champions for this. So Nigerians should expect a lot of champions from the National Assembly, from the executive, and in fact from the Supreme Court.
Meanwhile, the Senate, through its Committee on Finance, has frowned at the 17 trillion naira loss incurred by the country on tax waivers within the last 5 years. It consequently urged the Federal Inland Revenue Service to suspend the tax waivers being largely abused and substitute them with a rebating system. The Senate's objection to the alleged abused tax waivers came to the fore during the 2024 budget presentation of FIRS to its Committee on Finance. In his remarks at the budget presentation session at the Senate, the chairman of the committee, Senator Sani Musa, told the FIRS chairman, Mr. Zak Adedeji, that tax waiver bills, which has cost the country about 17 trillion in losses within the last 5 years, should be suspended and substituted with the rebating system. And also in the course of the week, in a significant development for Nigeria's maritime sector, Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Mr. Oyetola Adegboyega, announces that the $800 million required for the rehabilitation of the nation's ports is nearly secured. During the commissioning of 7 patrol boats by the Nigerian Ports Authority, the minister emphasized that the vessels are poised to enhance operational efficiency within a Nigerian port. TVC News correspondent Ifunanya Eze has more.
Amidst the presence of the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Mr. Adegboyega Oyetola, and top officials from the Nigerian Ports Authority, a milestone was marked as 7 marine craft were officially commissioned and named. Mr. Oyetola commended the Nigerian Ports Authority's proactive approach in bolstering safety within the maritime domain, emphasizing its potential to elevate the competitiveness of Nigeria's ports.
We can't be talking of trying to get the potentials of the blue economy without strengthening the security aspect. So I'm delighted to be here, and I believe we're going to procure more of these boats to ensure that at any point in time, our maritime space is secured.
The minister also revealed that government is fully prepared to commence the much-needed rehabilitation of dilapidated ports, paving the way for a more efficient port operations.
We are modernizing the port, we are automating the port. We want to be able to compete with any port in the world. We want to ensure the vessel turnaround time is reduced to about 4 days, as opposed to about 6-10 days now. And I think deliberately we are doing a lot of that. We must commend the President for taking the initiative of creating the ministry and for supporting us all the way. I can tell you that the fund for rehabilitation of the port is almost ready.
The managing director of the Nigerian Ports Authority highlighted the significance of the patrol boats in solidifying Nigeria's position as a maritime logistic hub in Africa.
There's nothing better than being commended by your boss, and I want to thank him for that. And on behalf of myself, my other colleagues, the executive directors and management and other staff of MPA, we assure the minister that we'll keep doing more to ensure that we meet those KPIs that have been set. And as the minister has said, the funding for the port rehabilitation is almost ready, and he's right on spot on that. Very soon you'll hear about us commencing the port rehabilitation, and we want to thank the minister and the president for their vision and support towards ensuring that we quickly start the port rehabilitation.
They admit that deploying the patrol boats represents a significant advancement for the country's maritime security.
Away from there now, Natural Oil and Gas Supplier Association of Nigeria wants the federal government to peg the dollar rate at 750 naira benchmark as against the current floating of the naira. In a press conference in Abuja, the national president, Mr. Bennett Korea, called on the federal government to look into the continuous rise of the dollar or else risk having more union withdraw their services. Helen Osamide Iking's report.
Fare queues are gradually returning to petrol stations in Abuja as the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners directed its members to withdraw services due to high operational costs. With this, queues are gradually stretching in some fuel stations in Abuja, with many engaging in panic buying.
There's panic buying because even at yesterday at A Rando in Otako, I saw those guys selling jerrycan. They were much on the road, but this morning I couldn't see them. So there's panic buying. So the government should look into it.
The Natural Oil and Gas Suppliers Association of Nigeria attributes this to the rising cost of dollar. The call on the federal government to peg dollar rates at the benchmark used for the 2024 budget.
Let the government come out and say 500 naira to a dollar or 200 naira to a dollar, whatever rate that they come out with, they should stand. Whether the black market is going 1 billion naira, it should not bother Nigeria. Let them come and fix one price that everybody will know.
They also want the government to reintroduce bargaining claims as against subsidy removal.
They can introduce the bridging back into the system so that to reduce the rate. So I'm asking government to reintroduce bridging, PEF, to reduce the hardship, because it will help. If you introduce the bridging, it will also help.
And outside Nigeria now, despite liquidity crisis in the cryptocurrency market, the value of the world's most popular cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, tripled to 52,000 in November 2022. Following its gains in 2023, investors have returned in droves in recent weeks, pushing the asset market capitalization above $1 trillion for the first time since 2021. According to the price tracking website for cryptocurrencies, the supply of Bitcoin is limited and is expected to reach a peak of 2,000, or that's about 2140. That's what analysts are saying. Analysts says money flows into Bitcoin have been boosted by the recent launch of exchange-traded funds that invest directly in the cryptocurrency and which have made it easier to retail investors to put funds into the asset. And finally, on the news now, Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics says the country's economy declined by far more than expected in the wake of conflict with Hamas in Gaza. Gross domestic product, a key measure of country's economic health, fell by 19% on an annualized basis in the fourth quarter of 2023. That is the equivalent of a fall of between 5% in October and December, while the Bureau said GDP is directly affected by the outbreak of the conflict on 7 October. Israel and Hamas have been at war after gunmen from the Palestinian group launched an unprecedented attack on Israel from Gaza, the deadliest in Israel's history. Economic experts said the data released by Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics was much worse than expected. Well, those were some of the biggest stories in the business week. And coming up after this break, Nigeria's gross domestic product increased by 3.46% year-on-year in real terms in the fourth quarter of 2023. So that's a talking point in a moment. Stay with us. This is Business Week. Well, thank you, everyone. Let's get into our main conversation for today. The latest report from the National Bureau of Statistics reveals that Nigeria's gross domestic product increased by 3.46% year-on-year in real terms in the fourth quarter of 2023. The growth rate was mainly driven by the services sector, which recorded a 3.98% increase and contributed about 56.55% to the aggregate GDP. While the agriculture sector grew by 2.1%, industry sector surged by 3.6% year-on-year. On an annual basis, GDP grew by 2.74% in 2023 relative to 3.1% in 2022. Well, that's our talking point for the show. For more perspective, I'm joined by the head research unit at Imperial Asset Managers Limited, Mr. Kanayo John. He joins me virtually now. Thank you, Mr. Kanayo. We appreciate you for joining us now.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Mr. Frank.
Let's start this way. Nigeria's latest GDP figures, of course, we've seen that figure showing that the economy gained 3.46% year-on-year increase. But on an annual basis, it grew by 2.74% in 2023 compared to what was obtained in 2022. What factors do you suppose are driving this trajectory?
Now, what are the factors that are major drivers to the GDP? We can look at the service sector, the agriculture sector, and the industrial sector. These are the three major categories of the GDP when it comes to sectors. We observe that service sector grew by 3.98% and contributed about 56.2% to the GDP. This is a major and is actually a big driver to the GDP in Q4 2023. And again, if you look at the, by the time you move it to the the classification based on oil sector and non-oil sector. We equally understand, based on the data, that oil sector grew by 12.12% in Q4 2023. And markedly, this is the first time in 15 quarters that we're having positive growth in oil sector. And that equally contributed to the growth we have seen in the benchmark GDP number.
Well, the services sector's impressive growth is a welcome sign when you look at that. What specific areas within the sector do you think are driving this surge? Because that's very, very impressive.
We could see that the figure for financial and insurance subsector grew by 29.8% in the quarter under review. When you compare this to 28.2% done in the previous quarter, you could see that there is an appreciable growth in this subsector. Then if you move away from here, you look at trade. Trade has about 1.4% growth compared to 1.53%, though marginally. But then on year-on-year basis, and the figure we have for trade is an improvement over what was done in 2022. So these are the major subsectors that contributed significantly to the growth we have seen in services sector.
What do you suppose are the key challenges and opportunities for maintaining this growth in the coming quarters?
We could see that one of the major challenges that we have faced is the oil subsector, and obviously because of the fact that oil production has been consistently lower than the capacity that we can do. And currently we are doing that based on the figure we have now. We are told that we did 2.55% in Q4 2023. And if you look at that, it is significantly lower than the capacity that we can do. We have a production capacity of 2.345, and we are currently doing at 1.55 million barrels per day. This is area that government needs to put attention on. Government needs to work significantly on providing improved securities in this area.
Well, let's look at external factors such as global commodity prices or trade trends that could impact future growth. Right now, we've seen that global economies seem to be suffering from uncertainty. Speak to us about that.
If you look at this very crisis, you could see that it ought to be an advantage to us, because that of Russia is a major producer of oil, and we know the challenge between Russia and Europe area, and equally the sanction that the Western countries, the major Western countries, especially led by USA, has placed upon Russia, which has significantly reduced what they supply to the areas of needs. If our government take advantage of this, especially scale up production, we should be able to supply to areas where there are deficits. Especially, I know very well that India in those days used to be a major importer of our crude oil. If government put more effort into this, I've equally mentioned the fact that we are producing below our capacity. This will add up to boosting our GDP. And I think there are significant information that prices in Kano, in Niger State, and some other states in the north are coming down, especially when it has to do with grains. The government decision to release grains to farmers and to to consumers or to Nigerians is a very welcome development.
Well, the question every Nigerian wants to ask at this time is, how does this growth impact, their pocket, their earnings capacity? What policies and strategies are needed to ensure this growth is inclusive and sustainable?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Frank. How does it impact the GDP growth of 3.46%? What impact does it have on the pocket of every Nigerian? It is a challenge. Yeah, our GDP has grown from 2.54% in Q3 to 3.46% in Q4. But if you look at year-on-year growth compared to what we did in 2022, you could understand that we are struggling with productive activities at 2.12% compared to about 3.10 done in 2022. It means that we are struggling with productive activities. This is not a good position to be.
What a good place to leave the conversation. And thank you so much for your time, Head Research Unit at Imperial Asset Managers Limited, Mr. Kanayo John. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you'll be watching Business Week coming to you from our studios here. And just before drawing the curtains on the show this week, let's tell you that crypto trading platform Binance has taken some actions to adjust trading on a platform by Nigerians to address what it described as an unusual currency movement. While many Nigerians have been complaining of facing restrictions with buying and selling USDT on the platform since Tuesday, Binance said its action was to protect users and prevent any abuse. The company, however, distances itself from the forex crisis in Nigeria, saying its platform is market-driven and not intended to be a proxy for currency pricing in Nigeria. The Nigerian naira has been on a steady decline against several other currencies, with the naira tumbling to a record low of 1,830 per dollar in the parallel market in the week, while British pounds now trading at over 2,000 naira. Well, that's our show this week. Thank you for watching. I am Frank Omalape. I'll see you next week.